Why is your name on the security account? Because this is my house.
Wait, Mom said we were moving in.
Oh, you finally figured it out.
The day I moved into the first home I had ever bought completely on my own, I found a moving truck in my driveway, my brother's wife standing on my front porch, and half my family carrying furniture through my front door. I should have screamed. Instead, I smiled, picked up one of their boxes, and said, "Which room do you want this in?" 2 hours later, my sister-in-law stared at the security installer, then at me, and shouted, "Wait a minute, why is your name on everything?" I put my coffee down and smiled. "Oh," I said, "you finally figured it out? Hello. My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 36 years old, and this is the story of how the biggest purchase of my life exposed exactly what my family thought I was worth. For most of my life, I was the dependable daughter, not the favorite daughter, not the exciting daughter. The dependable one. If my parents needed someone to organize a medical appointment, they called me. If my brother Evan needed help rewriting a RA Summe, he called me. If his wife, Marissa, forgot to order a birthday cake for one of the kids, somehow I became the emergency bakery. I was good at fixing things, and for years I mistook being needed for being loved. Evan was 3 years older than me. He had always been the golden child. He was funny, loud, good-looking, and talented at making every mistake sound like bad luck. When he missed a credit card payment, he was under pressure. When I worked weekends for 6 months to qualify for a promotion, I was too obsessed with work. When Evan and Marissa leased a luxurious UV they could barely afford, my mother called it necessary for the children. When I drove the same paid-off sedan for 9 years, Marissa joked that I looked like an accountant who had lost a bet. I never corrected her. The truth was that I had spent more than a decade living below my means. I worked in cybersecurity compliance for a healthcare company in Atlanta. It was not glamorous, but it paid well. I invested steadily. I had no credit card debt. I had sold a small townhome 2 years earlier for a profit, and I had been saving nearly everything from a consulting side job. By 36, I had enough for the kind of house I had once thought belonged only to other people. It was in a quiet neighborhood north of Atlanta. Brick exterior, 4 bedrooms, a home office with tall windows, a finished basement, a screened porch that looked over a line of oak trees. The asking price was just over $1 million. I negotiated it down slightly, put down a large payment, and closed without telling my family. That part was intentional. Every time my family knew I had money, they found a reason that money should solve someone else's problem. So I told them only one thing. "I'm moving next Saturday." My mother asked where. I said, "I'll send you the address after I'm settled." She complained, but I held my ground. There was one exception. 3 days before closing, I had a refrigerator and washer dryer set scheduled for delivery. I had an all-day work meeting I could not miss, so I asked my mother if she could meet the delivery team for me. I sent her the address and a temporary keypad code. I also said very clearly, and please do not share the code, "It expires Friday night." She replied with a thumbs-up emoji. That tiny message became the doorway to everything that happened next. Moving day arrived on Saturday morning. I woke up before sunrise in my old apartment. My own boxes were stacked against the walls. I had hired a moving company for 10 in the morning, but I wanted to reach the house early, walk through it alone, and enjoy one quiet hour before the chaos. I bought coffee and a breakfast sandwich on the way. At 7042 M, I turned onto my new street and saw a 26-foot moving truck parked in front of my house. For a few seconds, I thought the company had arrived early. Then I saw the logo. Wrong company. Then I saw Evan's SUV. Then Marissa's sister's minivan. Then my father's pickup truck. I slowed down. My stomach tightened. The front door was open. A man in a moving company shirt came out carrying a lamp I recognized from Evan's living room. Behind him, Marissa stood on my porch holding a clipboard. She was smiling, not nervous, not confused, smiling. I parked across the street and sat there for maybe 10 seconds. 10 seconds was enough for my confusion to become suspicion. I opened the smart home app on my phone. The temporary code I had given my mother was supposed to expire the night before. Except the lock log showed that someone had created a second code on Thursday afternoon. IFMOB. My mother had used the administrator screen while she was waiting for the appliance delivery. She had created a permanent code, and someone had used it 17 times that morning. I felt something inside me go cold. I got out of the car. Marissa saw me and waved both arms. "Claire." Finally, I walked up my own driveway. Boxes were everywhere. Some were labeled Mastar. Some said Kid Rom. One said Marissa OFC. My brother came through the front door carrying a television. He saw me, hesitated for half a second, then smiled too hard. "Hey, Claire." I looked at the television, then at him. "Busy morning." Marissa laughed. "You have no idea. The movers were supposed to be here at 6:30, and they showed up almost 40 minutes late." I looked past her. My mother was inside my kitchen arranging flowers. My father was standing near the staircase. He would not look at me. That was the first moment I knew this was not a simple misunderstanding. If everyone had truly believed the house belonged to Evan, my father would have greeted me normally. Instead, he looked like a man waiting for an alarm to go off. Marissa handed me a box. Can you take this upstairs? Second bedroom on the left. I looked down at the label. 1 tar CLHS. Then I smiled. Sure. My mother visibly relaxed. That was the second clue. I carried the box inside. It was the strangest walk of my life. I stepped into the foyer of the house I had worked 15 years to buy, carrying someone else's belongings while my family acted like I was a guest. Marissa followed me. We're making the big room ours, she said. Obviously. The kids can each have their own room, and Evan thinks the basement should be a game room. I stopped at the staircase. What about the office? Oh, I claimed that. You did. She grinned. You barely need an office. You're always at the computer anyway. You can work in the basement. I almost laughed. Instead, I said, good to know. I carried the box upstairs. Then I took out my phone and sent one text to Naomi Pierce, the real estate attorney who had handled my closing. Family is inside the property using a code I did not authorize them to create. They appear to be moving in. I am documenting. Please call me when you can. Then I turned on audio recording. I did not know yet what I was dealing with. But cybersecurity had taught me one useful lesson. When something feels wrong, preserve the evidence before you confront the person changing the story. For the next hour, I helped. Yes! I actually helped them. Not because I wanted them there. Because I wanted to understand what they believed. Or more importantly, what they had planned. Marissa talked constantly. She complained that my kitchen cabinets were too dark. She said she wanted to replace the light fixtures. She wanted a larger pantry. She wanted to paint the office. Something more feminine. Her mother arrived carrying 2 bags of bedding and said, "This place is such a blessing." I asked, "Who told you about it?" She said, "Marissa said Diane and Harold finally came through." Diane and Harold were my parents. I looked at my mother. She suddenly became very interested in unpacking drinking glasses. A few minutes later, I found Evan in the garage. He was alone. I asked quietly, "What exactly did Mom tell you?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "She said they were helping us get into a house. This house." He looked toward the door. "She gave us the address." "That's not what I asked." He sighed. "Claire, can we not do this today?" That sentence told me more than any answer could have. He knew there was something to explain. I said, "Did you sign closing documents?" His face hardened. "Why are you interrogating me?" "Did you?" Mom said the paperwork was being handled. "By whom?" He walked away. I watched him go and felt the last part of my hope disappear. This was not a family accidentally arriving at the wrong address. They had avoided questions on purpose. At 9:18, Naomi called me. I went outside and stood beside my car. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. Then she asked, "Did you give any of them permission to live there?" "No." "Did you sign any lease occupancy agreement, gift document, or transfer?" "No." "Do you want them removed today?" "Yes, but I want to understand how far this went first." Naomi was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Document the condition of the property. Do not sign anything. Do not make promises." And Claire, "Yes, if anyone shows you a document with your signature on it, photograph it before you react." That sentence made my skin prickle. "Why would they have a document with my signature?" "I don't know," she said. "But people who skip basic ownership questions sometimes have a reason." I went back inside, and 15 minutes later, I found the reason. Marissa was in the kitchen talking to a utility company on speakerphone. I heard her say, "Yes, the lease starts today." I stopped walking. "Lease?" The representative asked for an account number. Marissa began digging through a blue folder. I leaned against the doorway. "What lease?" She looked up. Her expression changed for 1 second. Then she smiled. "Nothing you need to worry about. I'm curious." "Claire, we're trying to get settled?" "Whose name is on the lease?" My mother stepped between us. "Can everyone please stop making today stressful?" I looked at her. I asked one question. Marissa snapped the folder closed. "It's handled." There was that word again, handled. I had heard it from Evan. I had heard it from my mother. Now I heard it from Marissa. I walked closer. "Let me see it." "Noob." That was the moment the room changed. My mother's face went pale. My father finally looked at me. Evan stopped carrying boxes, and Marissa held that blue folder against her body like it was armor. I knew. I did not know exactly what was inside, but I knew it was bad. Before I could say anything, the doorbell rang. A man in a navy polo stood outside with a tablet and a tool bag. "Good morning. Secure Line Home Systems. I'm here for the ownership verification and security activation for Claire Bennett." The silence behind me was immediate. I opened the door wider. "That's me?" The installer smiled. "Perfect. I'll need to verify your ID. Then we'll register you as the primary owner on the system." Behind me, Marissa said, "What?" I gave the installer my driver's license. He looked at the tablet. "Claire Bennett, sole account holder. Property ending in 472. Is that correct?" "Yes." Marissa walked toward us. "Wait a minute." The installer looked confused. She pointed at his screen. "Why is her name on the house?" I turned slowly. Everyone was staring at me. My mother looked like she might faint. Evan whispered, "Claire, don't." But I had spent 36 years being told not to make things uncomfortable. I was finished with that job. I put my coffee cup on the entry table. Then I smiled at Marissa. "Oh," I said, "you finally figured it out?" She stared at me. "Figured what out? This is my house?" Nobody spoke. Even the security installer seemed to understand that he had accidentally walked into the final scene of a family drama. Marissa laughed once. It was not a happy laugh. "That's not possible." "It is. Your parents bought this for us." "No," my mother whispered. "Claire," I looked at her. "Did you buy this house?" She said nothing. I looked at my father. "Did you?" He shook his head. I looked at Evan. "Did you sign a mortgage?" His eyes dropped. Finally, I looked at Marissa. "Did you transfer $1 toward the purchase?" Her face turned red. "This was supposed to be our home. According to whom?" She pointed at my mother. Her. I turned. My mother started crying, not because she was sorry, because she had lost control of the story. She said, "I told them we would help them find something." Marissa shouted, "You said this house was taken care of?" My father said, "Diane, tell the truth." Everyone looked at him. My mother froze. He rubbed both hands over his face. Then he said the sentence I will remember for the rest of my life. "We knew Claire bought it." My chest went tight. Evan cursed under his breath. Marissa looked at my parents like they had betrayed her. I asked, "You knew?" My father nodded. "Your mother thought once they were moved in, you wouldn't put them out." There it was. The real plan. Not confusion. Pressure. My mother had not accidentally given them access. She had given them access because she believed I would surrender after the fact. She knew I had bought the house. She knew I had not offered it to anyone. And she decided my ownership was less important than Evan's need. My mother rushed toward me. "Claire, listen. They have 2 children. Their lease ended. They needed stability. So you gave them my house." "I thought you could share." "Share. You have 4 bedrooms." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because something in me had finally broken cleanly instead of painfully. I turned to Marissa. "Show me the lease." She shook her head. I held out my hand. No. I took out my phone. Then I'm calling the police and telling them someone is inside my home using a document they refused to show the owner. Her face changed. Evan said, "Marissa, give it to her." She glared at him. Then she threw the blue folder onto the kitchen island. I opened it. The first page said Rasidiantal Osikiansi Wajariement. My name was listed as owner. Evan and Marissa were listed as occupants. The monthly rent was $1. The term was 12 months. And at the bottom was a signature that looked almost like mine. Almost. Except I knew exactly where it came from. 2 years earlier, I had signed a birthday card for my father with a thick black marker. My mother had scanned family photos and cards for a digital scrapbook. Someone had taken my signature from that card and pasted it onto the document. I felt colder than I had when I first saw the truck. I did not shout. I did not even look at Marissa. I photographed every page. Then I sent the images to Naomi. My father sat down. Evan whispered, "I didn't know about that." Marissa snapped, "Don't lie now." He turned toward her. "You said your cousin made a sample agreement, a sample." My voice was calm. Marissa looked at me. I said, "You used my signature." She crossed her arms. "We needed something for the utilities." My mother said, "It wasn't meant to hurt you." I looked at her. "You forged my signature to move another family into my house?" She flinched. "That word is too dramatic." "No," I said. "The word is accurate." My phone rang. Naomi, I put her on speaker. She said, "Claire, I reviewed the photographs. Do not alter those papers. Put them somewhere safe. I recommend you contact law enforcement and make a report concerning the document and unauthorized entry. I'm also coming to the property." Marissa's confidence disappeared. "You called a lawyer?" I looked at her. "I bought $1 million house. Of course I have a lawyer." The security installer quietly asked if he should come back later. I said, "No, please finish the system. That mattered to me." They had turned my moving day into their emergency. I refused to let them cancel my life again. While he installed cameras and reset every access code, my family argued in the kitchen. Evan blamed Marissa. Marissa blamed my mother. My mother blamed desperation. My father blamed everyone except himself until I reminded him he had admitted knowing. Then he went silent. At 10:26 a.m., my moving company arrived. My movers pulled up behind my brother's movers. For a few minutes, there were 2 moving trucks outside the same house. One trying to move a family in. One trying to move the actual owner in. My lead mover walked up to me and said, "Mom, where do you want us to start?" I looked at my family. Then I said, "Give me 10 minutes." Naomi arrived 7 minutes later. She was wearing jeans, a blazer, and the expression of a woman who had already decided nobody in my kitchen was going to intimidate her. She reviewed the original paper. She asked me in front of everyone whether I had signed it. No. Whether I had authorized my signature to be used. No. Whether I had given Evan or Marissa permission to live there. No. Then she looked at them. "You need to stop moving belongings into this property." Marissa said, "We have nowhere to go." Naomi answered, "That does not create ownership." My mother started crying again. Evan asked if they could stay for a few days. I looked at him. There was a time when I would have said yes. A time when 2 children, family pressure, tears, and fear of being called selfish would have been enough to make me surrender. But then I looked at the forged agreement. They had not asked for help. They had designed a trap. "No," I said. Evan's face fell. My mother whispered, "Claire, please." I shook my head. You planned this because you thought I would be too embarrassed to stop you once the neighbors saw them moving in." She said nothing. "You were right about one thing," I continued. "The old me probably would have." My father looked at me. And now they move out. The next 90 minutes were chaos. My brother's moving crew began carrying everything back outside. Marissa stood in the driveway calling storage companies. Her mother cried in the passenger seat of a minivan. My mother followed me from room to room saying things like, "You're making this bigger than it needs to be." I finally turned around. "No, you made it exactly this big when you copied my signature." She stopped talking. The worst damage was upstairs. A dresser had gouged the hallway wall. Someone had scratched the hardwood floor in the primary bedroom. A heavy bed frame had chipped a stair rail. And in my office, Marissa had already used removable adhesive letters to put her business name across one wall. She had been inside my home for less than 3 hours. She had already branded it. I took photos of everything. At noon, a police officer arrived to take a report. I will not pretend it became some dramatic television arrest scene. It did not. The officer listened, documented what I showed him, collected information, and explained that the document issue would need to be reviewed through the proper process. That calmness made the situation feel even more serious. This was no longer a screaming family argument, it was a record. At 1:05 p.m., the last of Evan's furniture went back onto the truck. Marissa stood at the end of my driveway. Her hair was falling out of the clip she had carefully styled that morning. She looked exhausted and furious. "You're really doing this to your own brother?" I said. "No, I'm stopping what you tried to do to me." She pointed toward the house. "You don't even need something this big." There it was. The sentence underneath everything, "You don't need it, so we can take it." I walked closer. "I did not buy this house because I needed 4 bedrooms every night. I bought it because I earned the right to choose what happens inside it." She rolled her eyes. "That is so selfish." I smiled. "You're standing beside a moving truck full of furniture you tried to put in my house without permission. I'm comfortable letting you decide who sounds selfish." She did not answer. They drove away. My parents stayed. My father looked at the floor. My mother looked at me. Then she said something I never expected. "Where are they supposed to sleep tonight?" "Not, I'm sorry. Not, are you okay?" Not, we betrayed you." Her first concern was still Evan. I opened the front door. "You should help them find a hotel." My mother's mouth opened. I continued. "And the temporary code you created has been deleted. Do not try to enter my house again without permission." She whispered. "You're locking us out?" I looked at her. "No, I'm locking my door." They left. That night, I slept in my new house on a mattress on the floor. My real furniture was still partly in the moving truck because the day had fallen apart. I ate takeout noodles sitting against the wall of my empty living room. The house was quiet, and for the first time all day, I cried. Not because I regretted what I had done, because I finally understood what had happened. My family had not underestimated my money. They had underestimated my boundaries. They believed I would sacrifice anything if they created enough guilt around it. The house had simply made the pattern too expensive to ignore. I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. 2 days later, my aunt called. She sounded uncomfortable. "Claire, I'm hearing some things." "What things?" "That you offered Evan the house, then changed your mind on moving day." I closed my eyes. Of course, the family story had already been rewritten.
"Who told you that?"
"Your mother said there had been an agreement." I laughed once. "There was an agreement?" "It had a signature on it. It just wasn't mine." Silence. Then my aunt said, "What?" That was the beginning of the investigation I never wanted but desperately needed. I did not post online. I did not make a dramatic family announcement. I simply started collecting facts. The smart lock history showed the permanent code my mother had created. My doorbell camera showed Marissa arriving before sunrise with the movers. The recording on my phone captured my father admitting they knew the house was mine. The forged agreement contained my copied signature. And then came the biggest surprise. 3 days after moving day, my father emailed me. The subject line was, "I am so RY." Attached were screenshots from a family group chat I had never been part of. My mother, Evan, Marissa, and my father had discussed the house for almost 2 weeks. My mother had written, "Claire won't throw you out once you're established." Marissa had replied, "Exactly. We just need to get everything inside before she starts overthinking." Evan had written, "I don't like doing it this way." My mother responded, "Then don't ruin this for your children." My father had written only once, "This is a bad idea." And then he had shown up on moving day anyway. I read the screenshots 3 times. The pain was strange. I had wanted proof. Now I had it, and I wished I didn't. There is something different about suspecting your family used you and seeing it typed in black and white. They had discussed my personality like a weakness they could exploit, my patience, my reluctance to argue, my financial stability, my love for my niece and nephew. They had turned every good thing about me into leverage. I sent the screenshots to Naomi. Then I saved copies in 3 places. A week later, Naomi sent a formal demand for the cost of repairing the wall floor, stair rail, cleaning, locksmith service, and legal expenses connected to the incident. It was not revenge. It was accountability with receipts. Even called me that night. I answered because I wanted to hear whether he would finally say something real. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I'm sorry." I said nothing. He continued, "I knew Mom thought you'd let us stay. I didn't know Marissa had copied your signature until that morning. But you knew I owned the house? Less! And you moved in anyway. Wes, why?" Another long pause. Then he gave me the first honest answer I had ever heard from him. "Because everybody said you'd forgive us." That hurt more than an excuse. I said, "You gambled your family's housing on my inability to say no." He whispered, "I guess I did." And if I had given in? He did not answer. I answered for him, "Then none of you would be apologizing." He started crying. I did not. For once, his emotion did not become my responsibility. He asked if I would drop the repair demand. I said no. He asked if I could at least remove the legal fees. I said no. Then he said, "You're different now." I looked around my living room. My own sofa had finally arrived. My own books were on the shelves. My own key was on the table. "Yes," I said. "That's the point." I hung up. A month passed. Evan and Marissa found a smaller rental 40 minutes away. My parents paid their deposit. They also paid part of what they owed me after Naomi made it clear I would pursue the claim properly if necessary. Marissa never apologized. Instead, she told relatives that I had chosen money over family. That line eventually reached me through a cousin. I did not defend myself. I sent my cousin one screenshot from the group chat, the one that said, "We just need to get everything inside before she starts overthinking." Nothing else. No speech. No insults. The screenshot traveled faster than any argument I could have made. Within a week, the family narrative changed. People stopped asking why I had thrown them out. They started asking why they had moved in before I arrived. My mother called me furious. "You're humiliating us," I said. "I sent one message you already wrote. You're turning people against your brother." "No, I'm letting them read his plan." "You should protect family." I almost smiled. "Where was that rule on moving day?" She hung up. Thanksgiving came 2 months later. I did not go to my parents' house. For the first time in my life, I did not spend a holiday pretending nothing had happened. I invited 2 friends from work, my neighbor across the street, and an older woman named Ruth who lived alone at the end of the block. We ate too much food. We watched an old movie. Nobody asked me for money. Nobody told me I had too much space. Nobody suggested my home should belong to someone with children. At 9 that night, the doorbell camera sent an alert. My parents were on my porch. Evan and Marissa were behind them. For 1 second, the old instinct returned. Open the door. Keep the peace. Do not embarrass anyone. Then I remembered the group chat. I stepped into the foyer, but left the door closed. I spoke through the camera. My mother said, "We need to talk like a family." I said, "About what?" Marissa stepped closer. Their new rental, she explained, was smaller than expected. The kids were sharing a room. Their commute was difficult. Money was tight. Then she said, "Your basement is finished." I actually laughed. After everything, they were back to the same idea. Empty space equals available space. My father looked embarrassed. Evan stared at the porch floor. My mother said, "Just until they get back on their feet." I answered, "No." She said, "You didn't even think about it." I spent 36 years thinking about it. Silence. Then Marissa snapped, "You really enjoy punishing us." I looked through the camera at the woman who had once labeled my office with her business name before I had even moved into the house. "No," I said. "I enjoy not being punished for your decisions." Evan finally looked up. "Claire, I told them this was a bad idea." It was the first time he had chosen the truth before comfort. Too late, but still true. My mother turned on him. We're trying to keep this family together." I answered through the speaker. A family held together by taking from one person is not together. It is just organized around a victim. Nobody spoke. My father closed his eyes. Marissa shook her head. "You think you're better than us because you bought this house." "No. I think the person whose name is on the deed gets to decide who lives inside it." My mother started crying. Then she said, "We made one mistake." I felt something in me become very calm. No, one mistake is forgetting a birthday. One mistake is sending a text to the wrong person. You planned this for 2 weeks. You copied my signature. You created a door code. You scheduled movers. You discussed how to use my personality against me. That was not one mistake. That was a decision repeated every day until I stopped you. And my father looked directly into the camera. He nodded once. He knew I was right. I continued. I hope Evan and Marissa rebuild. I hope the kids are happy. I hope all of you learn something from this. But none of that is going to happen inside my house. Then I ended the conversation. They stood on the porch for another minute. After that, they left. I did not feel victorious. I felt free. There is a difference. Revenge would have been trying to destroy them. I did not need to. Their plan collapsed under the weight of the truth. The repairs were paid. The false agreement was documented. The locks were changed. The family story was corrected. And the people who had spent years assuming I would always absorb the cost of their choices finally had to pay their own. 6 months later, spring arrived. I planted 2 small trees in the backyard. I turned the office into exactly what I wanted. I painted one wall deep green. I put a reading chair by the window. I left one guest room almost empty for months just because I could. That room became my favorite, not because it was beautiful, because nobody could point at the empty space and tell me it belonged to them. My relationship with my parents changed permanently. My father apologized without asking for anything in return. We started having coffee occasionally. My mother apologized too, but hers always came with a sentence beginning with, "But." I stopped accepting those. Evan and I speak sometimes. He is still my brother. But being my brother no longer gives him automatic access to my money, my time, or my home. Marissa and I do not speak. That is peaceful. On the first anniversary of moving day, I stood on my screen porch with a cup of coffee. The morning was quiet. No moving truck, no family argument, no one claiming rooms that were not theirs. Just sunlight through the trees and the sound of my own house settling around me. For years, I thought the strongest version of me would be the one who could keep everyone happy. I was wrong. The strongest version of me was the one who could disappoint people who benefited from my lack of boundaries. That $1 million house taught me something money never could. Ownership is not only about what your name is written on, it is about what you are finally willing to protect. My family thought the house was the prize. It wasn't. The real prize was the moment I stopped asking permission to keep what I had earned. And if I ever forget that lesson, I only have to turn my own key in my own front door and remember the sentence that changed everything. You can love your family without handing them the keys to your life.